All right, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, August 13th. It is a special select board meeting. All members are present, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do board members have any conflicts of interest in the upcoming agenda?
I don't have a conflict of interest, but there's a potential appearance of bias on one of the in the town manager report.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. So we're gonna get right into business here. Consider the tax commitment, and Rob Duplessis is here to provide us with the information.
All these are the three different mill rate options for you guys to consider.
So as we mentioned at our last meeting, at that point we were getting ready for our revaluation meetings that went out that we held last week, and we put notices out to all taxpayers with their new valuation, new tax, and an opportunity to come in and meet with me and my staff to explain the process, to explain the values, talk about the tax that we estimated for this year. So at the last meeting, we went through all the budget items that the town had. I'll be more than happy to do that again if you like, but none of those have changed. And remember, we talked about, I set a mill rate that went out in the notices of $11.90 per thousand. And what that did was, on your pages here in front of you, that bottom line, number 23, it set an overlay higher than we normally have. Where the idea is people come in and talk to us, if we find reasons to concede value, we will. The idea is to keep that mill rate and eat away at that $86,000. So at the end of the week, we met with 115 properties. That's about a little less than 10% of the people that had property came in to see us. It was a 1 week thing, and there were people that have called in since then that still want to talk to me. Now they're going to roll into my regular assessing schedule. I think I have 2 days set up, and therefore those people will get the same courtesy, the same explanation that people got during the hearings. So whoever didn't go to the hearing, they're not missing out on anything. It was just easier on our side. We found a little change to make before the taxes were committed. After the taxes are committed, people come in with questions and we find reasons to change something. It's just going to be an abatement, but they'll get the same. We're not going to be more stern in our defense. We want to make the facts right. So all that being said, we had about that many properties, and through that process, we gave away just a scrid over $2 million. So that was kind of what I expected. The number was what I expected, considering the tax hike we had this year. And a lot of our conversations were about that, duly so. And we are set up to talk about value, talk about tax increase, whatever the taxpayer wanted to talk to in their meeting time. So
will you repeat that? So as a result of the 10% of the people that met with you, there was a reduction in valuation of $2 million.
Total reduction of $2 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So what that does, it gives us to our choices of the 3 documents that I gave you today. Keeping the mill rate at 11.9 gives us an excessive overlay, in my opinion. And I think it would be good to pick a slightly lower mill rate. The 3 examples you have in front of you, they go from lowest mill rate to highest mill rate. I've highlighted them for you. The first one would be $11.83 with an overlay of $39,000. The middle one, $11.84 with an overlay of $42,000 basically, and then $11 and 85 cents, almost a $46,000 overlay. So it's kind of what we normally see. Last year's commitment, our overlay was 36. So it's kind of in that ballpark.
And that overlay then is available for possible abatements.
That's right.
Do you know how much of the 36 was utilized last year?
But very, very little.
Very little.
Very, very little. Somebody from the state today asked about the abatements we gave out, very small, maybe a couple homesteads, things like that, but nothing substantial at all. So any of this overlay that doesn't get used, we can collect this overlay above and beyond what was voted on at town meeting, but we can't spend it on any budget items. It's there, it's used to take abatements out of it, and whatever's left over, it rolls into the undesignated fund for whatever we do next year. Every town uses it. It's a way of helping that undesignated fund, so. And usually when people come in to see us, we talk to all those people, giving up that amount of value that we did, that's the most that we will give up through this process. Now, once we set a mill rate tonight, taxes are officially committed. And that means that anybody who wants to formally contest their assessment, this is what starts that process. Up until this point, they legally can't file for an abatement. So with the commitment date being tonight, state statute says a taxpayer initiated abatement request must be made within 185 days from the date of commitment. So that means that anybody who files for an abatement with us, they have until February 14th, 2025 to file.
Do you have any sense? I know we haven't done this in quite a while. So the 115 households that you've met with so far, is nothing you can easily measure against. But do you have any sense as to what abatements may be filed this year as compared to last year? Because it sounds like using last year to get a sense as to what might happen this year, given the size of the increase, it would be hard to do.
Well, when somebody comes in to see us, the formal abatement process, this is state statute. The assessment is assumed valid, and it's up to the taxpayer to just prove that it was an illegal assessment. They were discriminated against, meaning everybody was treated one way and they were treated something different, which created an undue burden upon themselves, or the values were excessively over what the market says. So the idea is, my main goal is to set everybody at the same rate and assess everybody with the same yardstick, which makes a fair tax burden across all properties. That's what we try to do. The resulting tax burden is secondary for my job because I'm just responsible for value, but the day-to-day assessor here, I've been here for 30 years. We understand how this works and we talk to people about the budget. But if somebody comes in and upset just because the tax amount is so much more than it was a couple of years ago, we'll go through the listing, we'll make sure that we priced it out right, we have the listing right, and everything's accurately accounted for on the record. We won't be changing those. They can still file for an abatement, but they would, just because the tax is so much more than it was or more than they think it should, that does not meet their burden of proof to say that it's gone. So as far as, and it's hard to say, but my experience has been, it's not, and that overlay, whatever we pick, is far in excess of what we ever need.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So really the only thing, what overlay the board is comfortable with.
Any comments, questions?
Nope. Those are mine as well. Oh, that's all right. That's right. I remember the other one, right?
I'm going to ask another question because this is all relatively new to me. If our overlay was 36 last year, it sounds like you said you would pick maybe in the middle,
Right.
This year. Why are you suggesting that we go 5,000 more?
Well, just because I wouldn't be surprised if $5,000 of that overlay or so would be eaten up in people coming in to see me after tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense, based on the 10% that came in, sort of the error of the margin error that might help guide on how much should go into the overlay?
The errors are very, very minor because being the day-to-day assessors here since '94, we did the last reval. And so all of the building inventory is very good. It may be something that we didn't get inside the house, we had a bathroom count wrong, or we had something that had insulation that didn't, little things like that. And when it came to parts of these bodies of water, for example, that had the frontage was less than desirable. It's a little swampy, it's a little weedy, it may be steep. All those sort of things, we've conceded value for those back in the 2005 revaluation. And we carried those forward to this one because, I mean, those things don't change. They'll be there pretty much in perpetuity. The sales that we had of properties that had those challenges, the amount of deduction that we gave was still reasonable. So those are the biggest things would be if we were new in here and we didn't realize that this is the swampy shallow end of the lake and things like that. That would be something I'd be more concerned about, but we know the town inside and out. We understand the lots that have the challenges and we've addressed those. It would take a taxpayer to show that how we addressed that wasn't enough. And most of our meetings, 95% of those were just concerned over the tax burden change that's happened in the last couple of years. And remember, anybody who was under the stabilization program last year received last year's tax burden increase plus this 18% increase all at once. I met a lot of people who's had taxes go up $1,000 this year. And my value went up as it should in relationship to the market. I only had a couple of properties out of all of them that came in and actually just talked about value. My value is too high because here's proof that you may be too high in your value. We talk about that, and so the error margin is very small. You may see a bunch of abatements that come through your desk, but they're going to be for just small things, just housekeeping things, like I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. These changes in abatement, changes in mill rate we talked about. I just did a quick example. If somebody had a $250,000 house, the tax on the notice they received was $2,975. If we chose the mill rate in the middle, $11.84, that tax is down $15. It's not a big difference. It's something. It's better than going the other way, $15, or even staying the same. So I think we're doing everything we can to keep the amount of money we need from taxpayers as low as possible by dropping that mill rate just a little bit. Because like I said, the overlay at the mill rate we said is just excessive. We don't need that much overlay.
So I think I understand, and I kind of want to circle back to Hazel's question. We're asking more specifically about the actual dollar value, like per person, in that question, or maybe that's what I'm asking.
It was to try and see, based on the margin of error, how much overlay might be prudent.
Right.
Because I don't think we want to over collect, but there's been this assessment that they're collecting enough based on his experience on those people that came in. There's nominal changes.
Right. Because that $2 million in valuation is approximately 24,000 less than in actual tax earned revenue or right?
Yeah.
2 million divided by 11.
I was just going to go the other way with something like that.
Yeah.
The overlay of 38,100, it equates to $3.2 million in tax, a value that we lose before that overlay would go away.
Right.
You have the biggest concession of value during those hearings, which just happens every time we do this. So that was 2. Mm-hmm. This is 3.2. I don't see it. Even if I'm all wet, found maybe the error on something, and the overlay's gone. Yeah, it's just an easy tool to grab from. It takes basically if the town has no overlay at all, even if we set a $2,000 overlay, the abatement's going to come from undesignated. And all the years of overlay that we had that we didn't spend, they all went into general funds. It's undesignated, so you'd be taking from that anyway. So it's balanced, but I would expect to be anywhere near that at all.
And you said that we basically used up only a small portion of
very
last year.
small portion. In the last handful of years, because our values were so low, there wasn't any, we didn't change values since 2005. So there really wasn't any. Was it just the only movement of the needle everybody saw equally was the mill rate increase? So.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mike.
Out of curiosity, what's our median and our average assessments in this?
I didn't bring any of that in.
Do board members want to adopt or vote for a mill rate with the given overlay?
I move we adopt the one as recommended by the assessors, the overlay of 41,994.
Second.
Discussion. I have a question. Did you, maybe I didn't hear you at the beginning. Did you recommend the 41 versus the 38? For the overlay, or you're just presenting all three as possibilities?
What I usually do is I have the one that I'm comfortable with in the middle, and I just give
Oh.
you two on either side to see
Understood.
what we're talking about here.
Understood.
Yeah.
That is your recommendation.
Yes.
Any other discussion on that?
Again, I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference in each individual's taxes, but if we didn't use much of the 36. I'm wondering if having an overlay of 38 would cover us.
Yep. Do we want to have a vote on the motion that's on the table right now? So, any other discussion before we vote?
Well, I think the things to consider before we vote.
Yeah.
Is it'll be impact on the taxpayers
Right.
and the perception of not going with the lowest and, putting out a higher tax bill than maybe necessary.
Yeah, the point. It's a penny, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't have.
Henry, excuse me.
I may not have done this right, but I figured on mine, the difference between the lowest and the highest in here is like $9
Yeah, not
a
much,
year.
not much. You're going from 11.9 to the middle one of 11.84.
From the
That was
lowest one to the highest one, I got $9 difference on. And I put a 450 valuation. I don't remember what it was, and I would really like to know, and I know I'm not saying you should know now, but sometime I would really like to know what the median assessed value is for lots of different things that we consider. Is that something that?
Oh, yeah, it's
helps?
all,
Okay.
it's all in the software there. I can get
Okay.
that, yeah.
Did you provide a summary of that for the next meeting?
So all property, on water, off water, something like that.
Yeah. Medians and averages, so.
Right after that.
I'll come to you, Mike, second, and behind you.
I have a question. Is there a reason that it was decided that we would take the avenue where we would do the assessment all at once and jump from some tax rates were double, mine went up 40%, rather than doing it in stages, like 5 years, raise it up a little bit for 5 years, and then 5 years look at it again, rather than doubling the taxes for some of us, or 40% increase for myself?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It seems like a very large pill to swallow. I mean, you understand every year it's gonna go up, it's gonna go up. Okay, so 1 year it goes up a little bit more because we've had a new valuation. But to go up that much, I mean, we were under the impression, yeah, they were gonna go up $300, $400, $500. That's what we thought. Not several $1,000s, which is what it's for us.
Yeah, so I'm not, this would be my first valuation for the town as my time on the board, so that would be a question. Why is that the case?
So you can't. State statute doesn't allow you to incrementally increase something. The idea, and I get this question a lot, why did we go to 100% of market value today?
Right.
Why didn't we go to 90% of market value today? But the idea is the values before this year were based in 2005 market. And all the influences that the market has had on each individual property. We capture those changes by bringing everything to 100%. So all the values scattered, if you will, went to 100% today. If I relaxed every property 10%, it doesn't change the burden.
Right.
The total value goes down by 10%. And how would you go about a vehicle like that? The statute of the state of Maine says we are to assess at just value. Just value is defined in part by market value. But here's a case where in Maine, you do a revaluation 2005, where our just value is based off market value of 2005. And we carry that all the way through to a point where we cannot carry it anymore. We stop, we reset market value 2024, just value market 24 continues on to a point where we fail the standard of the assessing high or low.
And what would be what is in statute that standard for, 75% of value, 60%? 70.
Every year we get a report from the state of all the sales that occurred in Wayne over a 12-month period. There's a sales analysis run and it gives us an overall ratio, a weighted average ratio. And that ratio cannot be less than 70. And it can't be more than 110. If the market does what it did after 2008, you can have a case where values are over 100%. And we lower them. We've done that many times. Here, we rode such a wave that from 05 to 08, we had some appreciation. We lost it all after 08 with the crash, and it took a very long time to creep back up. So that's just the biggest thing here is that the gentleman spoke about a 40% tax increase. 25% of that was in the last 2 years of if you were stabilized, but 18% was this year. My value is the same, whether the tax rate is 10 or 12. So it's a very unpopular, but my responsibility is value.
Sure.
So that's what I have to defend.
Mike. Oh,
I have a couple of maybe misconceptions, so help me out with this, and I really don't mind being wrong on this, but I understand that when you reevaluate, which I'm all in favor of, everybody should be accurate as you can be. But when you reevaluate, you also relook at what your mill rate is according to your tax burden. Is that a mistake, or is that?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so when you have 100% valuation after stabilization, you end up with probably 30–40% increase in your values sometimes, depending on where you are. I'm not talking about a woodlot, I'm talking about when you on the water or even on a really nice area, depending on your house, all that stuff. That's why I want to know about median and average, both. And so given that, I get the fact that our valuation goes up, but I think our mill rate should have been adjusted to the point where our needs were met without undue, and stabilization probably has a lot to do with this, without undue hardship on the taxpayer, because you're going to end up with a taxpayer revolt kind of based on this kind of stuff. But second, we had a chance for a bond issue that we could have floated to taken. Is that also correct? That we've taken into account a lot of our road situations?
I think it was an option on the table, and
we turned it down.
Yeah, I think there was various discussion about it being I think one of the cases against the bond was related to what exactly? The argument against it was the road costs. Oh, you were there. You can tell about it. Excuse me. I was trying to dig that out.
I think that the primary argument was, yes, there was a big increase in the road budget for this year, but it is likely going to be a sustained increase. It's not a one-time thing. That based on the road committee's work, it looks like we have been significantly underspending over the last several years, and that the amount that is budgeted for this coming fiscal year is probably representative of what we're going to be spending going forward, and therefore it didn't make sense to issue a bond for.
That makes sense. Are you saying going forward? Is that mean like every year from now on?
Yeah.
That same amount of money that it's going to take to repair the roads now, every single year is going to be assessed.
This was, again, this was before we had a comprehensive multi-year plan. But the feeling of the road committee was that, yes, this is more representative of what the annual expenses would be.
I think when we bought, the town put a bond out for roads maybe 10, 11 years ago now. And I don't have the numbers to the decimal point, but if I recall correctly, I think a few years ago it was approximately like 300,000 per mile-ish. And I don't know the number that the road committee worked on, but I know it's dramatically increased per mile for a reclaim or a paving or, is that true? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
It's cost of construction.
It's dramatically increased, so. But it doesn't mean after a more comprehensive plan, there isn't another evaluation or look at how that spending takes place. And I think part of the increase this year for the roads, not only was the increase in cost, but it was also a component of cash flow to get money in the budget to do roads in the fall, but then also to have money in the budget to do roads in the spring prior to the next town meeting where that budget line is committed or not at the annual town meeting, right? It was a way to kind of play a little bit of catch up and take care of some road maintenance.
But we all understand that we can't have a 30%, for us it's 30%.
Yeah.
Increase in taxes every year. When the cost of living is going up 4 or 5% a year, and more than that, but more importantly is that our income can't match that. You're going to chase a lot of people out of town, or super gentrify, or I don't know what you're going to do. But this is so that we can't have that kind of burden every single year. This is not acceptable every single year.
Right.
Right.
Oh, Henry.
Yeah, Rob, and this is kind of on Mike's first question, Rob, the reassessment, it didn't have anything to do with the tax burden, the total amount of money that the town had to collect. Is that true?
That's correct.
And
right.
So,
right.
yeah, and so even if there was no reassessment, the taxes would have gone up in the aggregate proportionally just the same, correct? But what the reassessment did is some people, their value went up more than the average and they got hit harder. And some people, their value went up less than the average and they got hit less. Is that fair?
That's correct.
But the big hit to the pocketbook is not a reassessment problem. It's a budget problem.
I agree with that.
And so
I'm in favor of reassessment.
Yeah. So it's to equate the big increase in the value of your home to the increase in your tax bill is not necessarily true. You may have had the same increase in your tax bill anyway, if your house went up the same as the average home in the pool. Is that right?
That's right.
The place to have the debate about how much you spend is in the budget
It's in the budget
discussion, and not
session.
in this one.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, the town budget is about, do we have about a 15% increase? 16%, and so I think in summary, I think 6% was school and road. I think.
So I'm
No, sorry. Yeah,
I'm gonna put that together once these
Yeah.
numbers are set in
Yeah, that would
stone.
be
So
No, sorry, 6% was school and county, 6% road, and the difference municipal, but he's gonna put that together to see where that increase is. But those are loose.
Right.
Yes. So we have a motion on the table,
Withdraw it if it's desired.
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Rob, I really appreciate all the work you put into this and the explanations you gave, and I'm sure your last week or two meeting with 110 plus people was not the greatest week. But this is my thought process on this. And I recognize that you normally give a middle of the road and a high and a low, but my thought process on this is kind of a theoretical part. With 110 people coming in, the values didn't change that much. And even though it might only be like a 9, 10, 11, whatever the theoretical money the impact on the taxpayer is. There's a process if we don't have enough in the overlay. And the amount of overlay, even at the 38,000. Would still cover, I think you said, more than the adjustments you made for the 110 people coming in. So if another 110 people come in. You know, mathematically speaking, it looks like there's enough. In the pot if we went with the lower level.
And if I recall, you said that we'd have to hit a 3 million plus mark in order to use up everything.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I understood.
Would you like me to just withdraw the motion?
No, we can vote.
Yeah, okay, let's vote.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay.
So I'd like to move that we adopt the 1183 rate that will give us the overlay of the 38,000 level.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Nope,
Yep.
well, we have one more thing.
Oh,
This is
one more.
why I printed off all 3 scenarios.
Okay,
This is the commitment papers for you guys to sign tonight.
Oh, good.
There's 4 places to sign on those 3 pages. And Bryce and I will get together tomorrow or Thursday and start the process of getting the bills out to the printer.
All 3 pages, they're
All 3 pages, there should be 4 spots total. I won't do that. So I won't do it. Bryce will do it. You can have- I'll go and try to send them out. No, they don't, this isn't their business. And it's like, maybe those kind of. It's English, but probably that's okay. You know, it's in September, I have. Oh, you can do it by phone. You go. Yeah, you call the town office and.
Okay, I think people will accept taxes.
Over 4 pages? How many found this?
there's 2 signatures.
What missed one? Okay, so she missed one too.
I did. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep, have a good evening.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Town manager report.
I have a couple things. I think last meeting, there was some requests for me to bring some information forward. One being other quotes for the culvert project. They can't get out within a week to get some quotes done. So the hope is by next Tuesday, I'll have those. And the other really important was the drafting of the referendum question for the internet. And to start with MMA and the lawyers over there really weren't comfortable drafting something. They needed more information, and really was such a sizable thing. They recommended really speak to our own attorney, which led me to bring that back to the table, because I didn't feel from last meeting that I had proper authorization to move forward to using our own lawyer at a cost. That's what I got.
It's not on the agenda for tonight, I think, for us to take action on. I don't know if there's any. Is that something, what do we want Bryce to do, and then what are we going to do for next week or whatever?
Regarding the internet.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got a couple of calls out to get more information on that. I don't know if they will be, what kind of an impact that information will have on what we want to do. We basically want to ask the town if we want to spend up to $500,000 on the internet, correct?
So I understood that
Excuse me.
we were getting some estimated costs on what the internet would cost, and some estimates on the funding model, what that would cost. And that the referendum had to have facts and data, because you can't have a referendum unless you can explain what the impact is.
And we did get the funding model, correct?
Well, those are models from when we discussed it many months ago. So I think probably the best avenue for the board would be, where it's not an agenda item, is to take it to the next agenda, and that's what I need. I just need to know in a discussion, format, is this something I should devote some time to really, to get up to date quotes and.
Was there any action at last meeting around this?
No.
Oh, there was no formal directive from the board, other than seeking
Research.
information.
We talked about hoping to get wording on the referendum. I'm waiting. I think we need to get an update on the costing. I was always unclear as to whether Consolidated Fidium Fiber would be able to accept or wait for as long as November in order to take this. So again, I reached out to them and with questions, but I haven't heard back.
As far as what Bryce does, if we want to tell him to go ahead and spend money, like contacting our attorney, I don't believe there's any way this is going to go on the November election, because you have to have a referendum question. The contract has to be described to the voters. There has to be a recommendation by the budget committee. That's a requirement in the rules. That's if you're borrowing money. There has to be a budget committee recommendation that goes on the referendum. And there has to be our recommendation on the referendum. Yeah. And the time that has to be sent to Kathy is our October 1st meeting. So I can't see any possible way that could be done and have a complete final warrant article that we refer with the appropriate recommendations to the secretary, or to the town clerk, rather, not the secretary, to the town clerk on our October 1st meeting. And before we might want to think about that before we tell Bryce to spend money on lawyers.
Yeah. Plus, I think we need more information for Bryce to spend money on lawyers.
Yeah, I agree. So don't contact the lawyer right now until we get more information.
Let's step back one. The question of the quotation on the road, $35,000. I think that the $35,000 is a minor matter in the scheme of things, and with the workload you got, I think it makes sense to just go with them, if they're content with the sheriff, the quality of work, just get it done. And so the likelihood, furthermore, the likelihood that they will, be enough change, I think they're worth it, is small. And if you look at it, you pick three, maybe they say, well, we need more, you're really gonna have to estimate the entire project.
Well, that's, I sent out the whole project with the scope to each culvert, so, because I couldn't see how they could do it, which every culvert's different, what it needs.
Yeah.
The length, the size.
So they're gonna give you an estimate, correct?
Hopefully by next week, yeah, I hadn't heard anything, so, but they need to come out and check them, but. I think one more week isn't gonna kill us.
Right.
All right,
Right, yeah, the important part is that we can get this done in the time frame that you need to start them up. Mhm.
is the draft charge ready for reconsider?
Oh, the draft, another subject, yes. I propose that we use, Henry's wording.
I brought double spaced copies of it, if we want to mark it up, I don't know if we want to work on that tonight or not, but if we do, and if we don't, just keep it. You may not like it, throw it away and start with the new one, or mark it up. Just pass one down, it's double spaced, so you can just write away in between the lines.
My recommendation, just opinion, would be because it's not on the agenda, there's no formal packet. So this is just for discussion, for you guys to use, look at, and then next meeting, it'll be on the agenda in the public packet.
So why don't we, because this was a special town meeting, we were trying to keep it brief.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a look at this and then we'll have a broader discussion next time? Does that work for everyone?
That sounds good.
So then, any other, town manager?
That's it.
Okay, board member reports.
Wait, do you need to formally add the people that got missed?
Sorry.
I put them on that.
They're on here, I think we could do that
Do that
when we
next
do
time.
all of this, yep, but we need to correct your.
We can edit that next time.
Right.
Board member reports. None, public comments. Yes, Mike.
Can you please summarize what you're going to do or not do about the internet? It seems like you jumped to something else before you finished what you're going to do or not.
I think, or not, I think, the summary would be, there's some concerns about, timing to get this on a referendum for November as it relates to reviewing, through the budget committee. And then also through the select board to have it by October 1. So there's a concern there. The question was whether or not Bryce should contact our legal to see if they could get a draft referendum. However, based on the fact that we don't have all the information in terms of costs and what the project scope is and contracts, Bryce is not going to contact legal in the next 7 to 10 days before our next meeting. So I think we're still on a information to determine how this project may or may not work for this town.
This was on your April meeting.
That's correct.
The minutes for April. It's not August. How come 4 months has transpired? You don't have enough information to put it on the November ballot right now.
Admittingly, I haven't taken it on.
Seems like nobody does.
I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, I think with the new board coming on, I think there's a new discussion. I think we're in a new season. So yeah, I think that's probably the state that we're in at this point. But I think we're re-engaging that discussion. Obviously, I think it was an agenda item last week. You had asked for it.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, it's a developing discussion that the board needs to consider. And then consider how it's presented to the town as it relates to the costs associated with it. And I think that's an important discussion. And I think I personally, speaking on, you know, as the chair, I think it needs the consideration and the time, given the fact, you know, even this plan right here is a $500,000 increase. So I think it needs to be, I think we need to review it. And yeah, I understand it was in April. There was another discussion, and I believe there was I think there was a select board meeting. I don't know if that was a formal public hearing or not on it, but there was attendance, and you know, the sentiment at that meeting was to not put it on the annual town meeting warrant, and hence it's been, for lack of a better word, punted again.
Right. Is the deadline October or September to get it on the ballot?
Yeah, it'd be so, is it 80? I always forget, is it?
Well, for referendum, secret ballot referendum, it's 60 days.
60 days, I was.
And it has to go to the clerk. It has, the complete thing has to go to the clerk 60 days before.
So your October date was incorrect, it's September.
No,
It's September, October, November, so it is.
well.
If you close, it'd probably mimic what you were
It's
going
not-
through with the referendum for the campground RV. It's that, so, and that's September 5th. Yeah, so it's even tighter than October 1.
Yes,
Yes, that's correct.
which is either you have more work to do in a shorter amount of time, or you're gonna plan to take you,
Right.
what, another 6 years? Because I think that's what Stan Davis said, you've been working on this for 6 years.
Understood. Other comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor? All right, thank you, everyone.